So, in this lecture, we will be talking about the process of identifying the right kind of platform to publish your research. As we know, there are multiple platforms that are available for publication, right? There are newspapers which publish some research related news items. Uh, there are some periodicals, weekly magazines, monthly magazines. Then there are some, journals. Hmm? So, what is the ideal platform for publishing your research? Hmm? Basically, the thing is that we should be able to understand the difference between these different types of platforms or publication platforms that are available for us. No platform is, better, or no other platform is worse. But the important thing to note is that the purpose of different platforms is different. So there are certain platforms that aim at lay public, whereas other publishing platforms that target the academicians and researchers. So one should be able to understand the difference between these two types of uh, periodicals or magazines and so on, right? So this is the question: where to publish? So publication of your scientific, results is very essential. There is no question about it. So I won't be discussing the question as to why should one publish. It is a known thing that a researcher, after completing his or her study, should publish the results. Otherwise, the science cannot grow. Science grows only because of the publications, right? So once you publish your results, somebody might find it interesting, and then they might include it in the review articles, and such review articles are often included in textbooks, and that is how the research comes into education. So this is a known process, and I won't be discussing about the importance of publishing. I will be discussing only the aspects related to the identification of the right kind of journals, right? So the one very important distinction that one needs to make between different types of publication platforms available is to identify which one belongs to popular literature and which one belongs to scholarly literature. So, for example, the monthly or weekly popular magazines, which laymen read, right? Laypersons read, who are not experts in the field, right? So, lay public reads maybe newspapers or maybe weekly magazines, right, which cover wide range of topics. They're not scientific journals or scientific periodicals. They're all, you know, general periodicals which cover various aspects of streams, maybe art, maybe culture, maybe science. So science could be just one of them. So such periodicals, they belong to the category of popular literature. Whereas the second category is that of scholarly literature or scholarly journals, where the journals are specifically focused on publishing research results pertaining to a particular field. And these are not read by common people, non expert people. Common in the sense non expert, right? So, non expert people, they do not read scholarly literature because they cannot understand it for obvious reasons. Even a biomedical expert may not be able to understand the physics or chemistry, for example. So uh, these journals, they publish the scholarly literature or scientific literature pertaining to a specific focused area, whereas public uh, uh, popular literature, it covers large or wide range of topics, and it is non-technical in nature. Right? So there are few more differences that one needs to identify to understand the differences between popular literature and scientific literature. So usually in popular literature, the weekly magazines, newsletters, and so on. So they cover shorter articles, and the articles often provide only a broader overview. Authors are usually not experts in the field. Even the journalist can write, right, popular articles. Often they are written by journalists, not experts in the field. Name and credentials of the authors may not be always published, right, in popular literature. And usually these articles are written in non-technical language. And articles, they do not follow a specific format or structure. Most of the times they do not follow a specific structure. Often the writers, they use their imagination, creativity, and so on, so that each article will be you know basically widely different from others, whereas in scientific literature it is not so. And one more fundamental difference is that articles are not evaluated by experts in the field. In case of popular literature, the articles are published only based on the discretion of the editorial board members, who may not be the experts in the given field, right? But when you come to scholarly literature, usually they are longer articles providing in-depth analysis of a particular topic. Authors are usually the experts or specialists in the field. Names and credentials of the authors are always provided. Even the affiliations are always provided in research articles. These articles are written in technical language or scientific language, and most of these articles, especially when they are original articles, right, original research reporting articles, they always are structured in a standard format like introduction, method, results, and discussion and conclusion, and so on, including even bibliography, of course. Right? And the fundamental difference, very important difference between popular literature and scholarly literature is that the peer review is the hallmark of scholarly literature. Right? Scholarly literature is always peer reviewed. Peer reviewed means it is subjected to the review. And who does this review? The experts in the field who have already published in this area, who are established, who have established credentials, right? So such people, they read the articles and then they suggest corrections or revisions, and then the authors comply with those. Most of the times they comply with these revisions or suggestions, and they revise it again and again, maybe several times, and finally when the reviewers think that now the article is publishable and it meets the expected standards of science and also publication, right, and then it receives, the article receives green signal, and then it gets into the publication process. So till the reviewers do not approve the article for reviewing, I mean publishing, the editors, they do not publish it. So of course this is the routine process and the classical kind of processing. Nowadays there are again different types of reviewing that are available. See, here I would like to state that popular literature is mostly non-peer reviewed, whereas scholarly literature is peer reviewed. This is the fundamental difference that I want to convey. But when it comes to peer review, it may be of several types. For example, single blind, double blind. When the authors do not know the identity of the reviewers, but the reviewers know the author's identity, then it is called single blind review. Similarly, when the reviewers do not know the identity of the authors, and similarly authors too do not know the identity of the reviewers. Then in such cases, the process is called double blind, right? Neither the reviewers nor the authors, they know the identity of each other. This is called double blind. Then again, peer review could be pre-publication and post-publication. Pre-publication is the traditional reviewing, protocol. The article is subjected to the peer review before it is published. But recently, there has been experimentation that is going on in relation to post-publication peer review. Right? Article is published, and then the reviewers, they review it, right, on a public domain, on the public platform. So that is how the post-publication review happens. Again, there could be a closed review and open review. Sometimes the reviews also may be uploaded along with the article. When it gets published, even the reviews along with the reviewers' identities, right? Everything may be sometimes uploaded along with the article. So in such cases, the review is called open peer review, right? When the review is not disclosed, not uploaded, or not made public, then it is called closed review. So there are different types of models which different journals follow, and we will not be getting into the details or depths of such intricacies, but yes, one has to have the basic understanding of peer review process as well. Now, how can you say that a journal is good or bad? Now we know that yes, the scientific articles reporting the scientific results of our research, right, they should be published in scholarly journals, not in popular literature, right? Of course, once they get published in scholarly journals, then you may send those articles to some news reporter who may be willing to publish it in newspapers or other general magazines or periodicals. But as an expert, you are mostly, on most of the occasions, you are not expected to write your results for popular magazines, right? You are expected to write your papers for scholarly journals. So this is the fundamental point that I wanted to make. Hope it is clear. Now, so how can you say that a journal is good or bad? Again, under scholarly literature or scholarly journals, it is a huge group, diverse group of journals. Again, some of them are good, some of them are bad, some of them are very, very bad. You have to develop this uh, discretion, ability to understand which one is a good journal, which is reputed journal, which is not so good journal, and which is predatory journal or pseudo journal, a new term that is coming up. So one should be a researcher or scientist should be, or academician should be able to identify the right journal for his or her research to be published. So these are some of the very, very basic essentials to identify that a journal could be probably of good quality or appropriate one for submitting your results. So first criteria is that it should be peer reviewed. It should be actually peer reviewed. These pseudo journals or predatory journals, on their front page, on their cover, on their websites, they say that yes, it is peer reviewed, international, this, that, and so on. But in actuality, they may not be peer reviewed at all, or they might be simply using the peer review as an eyewash, right? Some of those editorial members themselves might be doing this peer review, and because most of these predatory journals, they publish open access journals, and open access journals, they depend on author pays model. So their revenue is generated by the payment that the authors make, whereas the traditional journals or conventional journals, they are subscription based. Again, it would be pertinent to draw the differences between conventional journals and open access journals. Open access movement started with the good intentions, actually, right? It started with the intention that the science is done or research is done using after using the public money. Of course, most of the times we use public funding. Maybe the public funding agencies, they fund our researchers, or for example, we, the teachers or academia working for public universities, we draw our salaries, or we draw other, we get other facilities from the public money. So taxpayers money is being utilized for the purpose of research, and it is the duty of the researcher to make known the results to the public. So in other words, to say, the taxpayer has got the right to know what is happening with his money, how his or her money is being utilized. So that is why science has to be made open, right? This was the original intention by which, or with which, the open access movement uh, came into existence. But unfortunately, this open access movement happens to be, or open access model of publishing happens to be one of the most misused models. Because see, what is the distinction between open access and traditional conventional model of publishing? Conventional model or traditional model of publishing depends on the subscription for revenue generation, right? Libraries and institutions, individuals, they subscribe for the journal, and then that is how they get the revenue, and they do not charge the authors any fee. And that is why they do not make the articles public, right? Full article will not be made public by conventional journals, right? If you want to read it, you will have to pay the money, and then you have to download it, right? But in open access journals it is not so, right? The articles are open, and anybody can read and download it for free of cost. So authors have to pay here, readers do not pay. In conventional model, readers pay for reading the research results, but in open access model, the authors, they pay, right, for making the results open. So the problem with this open access model is that there are no inherently built-in checks and balances, because a journal is not compelled to be dependent on the readership, whether there are readers or not. It is often, not relevant, because they earn the revenue by authors payments, right? The article processing charge. Of course, nowadays the funding agencies, they also fund this author processing charge, article processing charges, sorry. So processing charges can be funded by funding agencies. So nowadays funding agencies also are making it almost mandatory to publish with open access journals to promote the, open accessibility of the science. But this model, see, that is why there are very good open access journals as well that follow stringent peer review process and so on. But unfortunately, this model happens to be one of the most misused models by the predatory publishing agencies or predatory journals. So they are not bothered about readership, they are only bothered about earning the revenue, and revenue is earned by authors, right? They make payments, especially they tap the young, yet to be established authors, especially maybe PhD students or young assistant professors and so on, because it is, they're very very much gullible. Easily they can be, coerced to submit their papers to this kind of journals, and they publish it, and these budding researchers, they often fall prey to such propaganda. So this is something that one needs to be very very clear about, and one needs to be aware of. So peer reviewed, so actual peer review has to be there, and you may contact with the earlier authors whose articles might have been published with the journal to ensure that yes, the quality of peer review was really good or not. Then indexed with some widely referred databases. For example, for biomedical literature, for us it is PubMed, or Medline is the best one. Medline is considered as the most standard database, because getting into Medline is very, very difficult for a journal. It has to cross a lot of checks and balances and scrutiny rather. Whereas PubMed is good, right? But yes, there could be some non-peer reviewed articles as well in PubMed because of so many reasons. Scopus is second one, right? Scopus is another good database. Of course, some journals in Scopus also may not be of high standard because so many reasons. Web of Science is another one. Mostly, again, there are different, groups of journals in Web of Science: Science Citation Index, Social Science Citation Index, and so on. And again, the Emerging Sources Citation Index. So this again depends on whether the journal is established one or emerging one, and so on. So a good journal should always focus on a particular specialty or field of science. So avoid the titles such as the Journal of All Sciences, because it is humanly impossible to have an editorial board that can look after the articles of engineering, of biomedical sciences, of biochemistry, of dentistry, of social sciences, arts and humanities, and so on and so forth. So it is humanly impossible for a journal to cover all branches of sciences and all branches of humanities, right? So always it is better to prefer a journal which is focused on the research area that you are dealing with. So these are some important points that make a journal uh, uh, you know considerable. You can consider this journal for publishing. Next, you may further go into the details of the journal. For example, uh, if a journal has got a you know higher volume number, it indicates that it is in existence for a long duration. Usually, most of the times, the volume number indicates the years of existence of that journal. So if volume number is 10, most of the times, it means that it is publishing since last 10 years. So if the larger or greater numbers you get to see on the journal for volume, then it means that the journal is has got an established standing in the field. Then editorial board, look for the editorial board. Who are those editors? Are they really publishing genuine? Are they really genuine researchers who are currently publishing? Right? You can search for those editors on maybe PubMed or any other good database and see their publications. How credentials are there? I mean, how credible are they? Right? Editorial board should be truly international if it is an international journal, right? If a journal claims to be international, then there should be editorial board members from different regions of the world, one from Europe, one from Asia, one from Americas, and so on. That is how a journal becomes international. And also, in the past issues, you should be able to see the articles published by authors from different regions of the world. Right? That is how a journal really becomes international. Now, ask these questions. If you have found out a journal or shortlisted a few of journals, then ask these questions, right? Is the journal available online? Go to the website. See how the website looks. Is it professionally made? Because most of the pseudoscience, or I mean pseudo journals or predatory journals, they do not have a professionally made website. Hmm? Um, whether it is an open access journal, be careful. As I told you, open access journals need to be very, very carefully identified. Does it have an impact factor? Impact factor is awarded by Clarivate Analytics, and it is dependent on the number of citations the journal has received. Hmm? Articles published in the journal for last 2 years, right, are considered, and the average citations received by the articles published in the given journal for last 2 years will be the impact factor of that journal for this year, current year. That is how impact factor is calculated. And this citation analysis is based on this Web of Science. The Clarivate Analytics is the agency that awards impact factors, and it is mostly transparent, and it gives you the number of citations each journal has received, or each article has received, right, that has been published in the journal. So that is how it is calculated. Under which quartile of 𝐼𝐵 journal rank does it fall? Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. So 𝐼𝐵 ranking, or SJR, 𝐼𝐵 journal rank, is again awarded by another agency, and this is again based on the Scopus citations, not on Web of Science citations. And the journals in a given field are categorized into 4 quartiles. So this makes you understand the credentials of the journal in the given field, because different journals belonging to different fields may not be comparable, may not be always comparable. A field such as Ayurveda, for example, it is a small field. The total number of citations generated, right, in the field of Ayurveda is very, very less in comparison with biomedical sciences, maybe biochemistry, maybe genetics. So you cannot compare a journal publishing exclusively Ayush research with the journal that publishes biomedical research. Obviously, the total number of citations, impact factor, and other things will be different, definitely higher for a biomedical journal. So this 𝐼𝐵 journal rank, what does it do is, it classifies the journals based on their areas or fields. So all the CAM journals, complementary alternative systems of medicines, all such journals publishing in different fields of CAM, complementary alternative medicine, they are grouped under one category. And then in that category, you will know, yes, under which particular quartile a journal falls. So Q1 is the best journal, right? Q1 journals are considered as best group of journals because their credentials are better than other journals falling under different quartiles, such as Q2, Q3, Q4. Same journal may be in different quartiles, right, in different fields, right? In Ayush 1 or CAM, a journal may be in Q1 or Q2, whereas the same journal, when it comes to maybe pharmaceutical sciences, it may be in Q3 or Q4. So that depends on the area in which you are looking for. So also check PubPeer and Retraction Watch. Right? PubPeer is a platform where post-publication reviews are published, often anonymously, and often the misconducts by authors or editors or sometimes reviewers, right? Or maybe, for example, research violations, ethical violations, image manipulations, all such practices are often flagged on PubPeer. So you may look for a journal on PubPeer to see how many articles published in that journal are there in the PubPeer, and that might give you an indirect idea about the peer review process and how stringent is that. Similarly, Retraction Watch is another website or database. It has got another database where you get details of retractions, why the paper was retracted, what were the issues. So if a journal has got too many retractions, it might simply mean that the process of peer review is not that good, right? But of course, it may not be always true. But yes, you may get a feeler, right? Now, always look for the time taken for editorial decision. So first decision, if it is given in maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks, it is reasonably good. If a convenient online submission process, if it is there, it is definitely good. Manuscript tracking facility, if it is there, right, it is definitely good, it is convenient. Acceptance rate, if it is known, it is convenient. If you are a budding researcher and your research is of course it is good, but may not be of very high quality, or may not have high impact. In such cases, you may prefer the journals that have reasonably a good acceptance rate, maybe 30%, 40% of acceptance rate, if it is there. maybe you can consider as a beginner. But as you mature and as your research gets better, then you might narrow down to journals that have a lower acceptance rate. Again, look for article processing fee. Is it transparent? Are there color printing charges? Are there reprint charges? Is the submission fee? See, all these things you should you know be conversant with before you submit your article to a journal. So what is impact factor? Yes, we just discussed it. The impact factor of a journal is the average number of citations it's each published paper has received during the two preceding years. And Clarivate Analytics gives impact factors every year, right, for a journal. Scimago journal rank. So it is a prestige metric based on the idea that all citations are not created equal. So as I explained, for different fields, the generation of citations is different. Hence, it categorizes the journals based on the fields, right? Based on the subject field. Now, be careful about fake impact factors or fake journal metrics. There are so many agencies that have come up which appear as though they are genuine, but many of them are not transparent. Many of them are, you know, randomly give their own metrics. They take money for giving metrics and so on and so forth. So this is a problem that is emerging as the predatory publishing is becoming more and more rampant. These agencies that award fake bogus metrics is also increasing. So author pays model of open access, you should be very very careful with this model. Fake peer review process is again very dangerous. There are many journals that carry out, especially the predatory journals, that apparently carry out peer review, but peer review quality is very very low. It might be simply uh, uh, you know about language, grammar, or spelling errors and so on, formatting and so on, but may not be about subject content at all. So in such cases, you should avoid the journal as such. Don't fall prey to call for papers. So if you receive an email requesting you to submit your paper to a journal because you are a reputed researcher in the field, right, be very very careful, right? If you have not yet published good number of papers, then it is unlikely that you receive a real call for paper email from a good journal. It is probably dubious. Claims such as under the process of PubMed indexing, there is nothing like under the process, right? There are only two possibilities, right? One is that the journal could be indexed with PubMed, or second is that the journal is not indexed with PubMed. There is no in between. Similarly, claims such as indexed in Elsevier. Elsevier is not a database; it is a publishing house, right? So these are all misleading, statements that predatory journals often make. There was a blog being authored by Jeffrey Beal. So Jeffrey Beal's list of scholarly open access journals, dubious, potential, possible, or probably predatory scholarly open access publishers and scholarly open access individual journals. He used to publish these lists, right? He used to update these lists periodically, and this had become a very very sensational news, right? And most of the times whenever the sting operation was carried out, those journals listed in this blog were the ones to accept even the artificial intelligence generated papers or nonsensical papers. So all this list was of dubious journals with dubious credentials. But of course, he has deleted this blog for various reasons. One of the reasons being that he was dragged into the court of law. But still, some of those, or rather, the list, though not updated, still exists on some other websites like Stop Predatory Journals. Uh, so you may consult these lists which are available. Another, uh, agency is 𝐬𝐫𝐫, right? 𝐬𝐫𝐫, it has got its own, list of journals, whitelist and blacklisted. I mean journals which violate the routine review process and so on. So 𝐬𝐫𝐫𝐫 is another agency which you can consult, but of course it is not required to go through all these lists. If you have the idea of actual what is good journal, then you need not go through any of these lists, right? You will be able to decide for yourself. All these lists are only helpful, and especially these are meant for those authors who are not conversant with the publication process. If an author is conversant enough, then he or she will not require any of these lists, right? So I always emphasize that you get yourself conversant with the process of publishing, the types of peer review, types of journals. So once you know these things, then it will not be difficult for you to identify the right kind of journal, right? You won't need any of these lists. So these are some dubious journal metrics: Advanced Science Index, Directory of Journal Quality Factor, International Scientific Indexing, SJIF Impact Factor, GISI Impact Factor, Global Impact Factor, Universal Impact Factor, Cosmos Impact Factor. All these are highly dubious with the least credibility, right? So I advise that all those journals that claim to be having any of these impact factors, right, should be outrightly rejected, outrightly avoided. Hmm? So UGC Care List is a curated list, right, of whitelist. It is a whitelist, right, of good journals. But again, for biomedical researchers, this list is not needed. It is needed for maybe Indian language experts or Indian music experts, right? Maybe some other fields which are locally important but not internationally recognized. Maybe to some extent, even Ayurveda, it may be useful. But in general, we should aim at publishing with good established biomedical journals. And for that, you don't need UGC list. Now, practical method to identify good journal. So this is the practical method that I would like to suggest. Very, very practical. And this employs a reverse approach. Hmm? Look for the topic of your interest on the PubMed and Scopus, or maybe even Web of Science. Look for the topic of your interest. And then look at the journal titles that publish in this field. You type maybe your own thesis title or your own paper title or matching keywords. You type on the PubMed and then you will get the published papers, right? Now you go to the each and every paper and see in which journal it is published. This is a very, very practically doable exercise. And then you shortlist some 10 or 15 best journals that have published these papers, right? If they are from credible publishers, if they have got good impact factor, even maybe good site score. Site score is similar to impact factor, but it is awarded by Elsevier and it is based on the citations received on the Scopus. And it considers last 4 years of average citations instead of last 2 years as an impact factor. Site score considers last 4 years of average citations received by the individual papers published in that journal. So good site score, good impact factor, and SJR, right, journal ranking. So if these journals meet these parameters, then probably they are the good journals, right? Look at the journal titles that publish in this field, then see if these journals are currently publishing. This is very important. Then go to the journal website and verify for the other details which we have already discussed. Verify for other details, right? And then ensure that the journal is currently indexed with at least 2 different databases with established credentials. For example, PubMed and Medline, PubMed and Scopus, Scopus and Medline, Medline and Web of Science, Web of Science and Scopus. So see, this is how different combinations can be made, and at least ensure that a journal is indexed with at least 2 of these good databases. Then possibly there are no chances that you end up submitting to a wrong journal. On most of the occasions, it will be a good journal, right? So this is the last slide. Thank you for your patient listening. But yes, I have got some small activity that has been planned. Rather, it is not an activity. I will show you some interesting databases or some websites where you have to check for the different journals. Right? This is PubPeer. So PubPeer gives you the list of papers that have been flagged on PubPeer. Right? Maybe for different uh, research violation, ethical violation, right? Problems with the peer review, problem with the editorial policies, and so on and so forth. So there are multiple papers that have been flagged on PubPeer. So a journal name, if you type and if you search for that journal, you will get all the papers that have been flagged over PubPeer. Second one is Retraction Watch. It has got a database of journals where you can search for a particular journal, or for example, if I have typed image and I have searched, so these are the papers that have been mostly retracted, or at least they have been flagged, and uh, all these have been flagged for the issues with the images, image manipulation, duplication of image, photoshopped images, and so on. So you can go through this database and search for a journal title also, and ensure that yes, the journal that you are considering is really good. This is a list of Retraction Watch hijacked journal checker. Many journals have been hijacked. Hijacked means uh, another website is open with the same journal title, with the same ISSN number and other things. It is actually a duplication of the journal, unauthorized duplication, and it is blatant violation of ethics, and also legally it is wrong. So this uh, uh, is the list of such hijacked journals, right? You can consult these journals to ensure that yes, whether the journal that you are considering is really genuine or not. So avoid, I mean, you should never submit to a journal that has been hijacked. Then there are some publishers who offer the journal finding or finder facilities, right? You can type the paper title and abstract and keywords and search for the journals in a given publishing house, right? For example, this is for Elsevier, right? Find journals. Similarly, this is for Springer, journal suggester. These are established publishers. Hence, this could also be a good idea to search for the appropriate journal published by given publisher. This is by uh, Taylor and Francis. Again, journal suggester, right? And this is Journal Guide. There is another website called Journal Guide. So, and this is, yes, Find the Right Journal, Springer Journal Suggester by BMC, right? Again, the same thing. So these are certain websites and resources that you can consult before ensuring that the journal that you are submitting is really genuine or not. So yes, now we will go through each and every website that I have just shared with you, and search for certain good journals or bad journals and flagged articles, right? And then understand, right, how all this happens, right? So I think I have been able to give you a broad idea about the overall publication process, and identifying the tips to identify the right kind of journal. So with this, I thank the audience for your patient hearing. Thank you.